there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm going to be doing my reading wrap up for the last 2 weeks. I meant to do one for each week, but my husband and I actually ended up getting really bad colds and my voice was shot last week, so I decided I would just do a cumulative wrap up. I read a total of I think 14 books, about half and half of like women's fiction as well as thrillers, but I did get 1 or 2 historical fiction mixed in, so I'm really pleased with how many I got done considering I was sick. I'm going to hop right into it as I do have a lot to talk about, and I will link them all down below to their Goodreads pages as well as mine if you guys want to be my friend. And yeah, I'm going to hop right into it. So the first book that I read is by Stacey Hart called A Little Too Late. This is a romance author. I think I read one other book of hers and I liked it. This one followed a woman named Hannah, and she is an au pair. She's from, I think, Holland, and she's been in the US for a few months as an au pair, but she had a really bad time with her first family because of the father. He tried to come on to her and have a relationship with her and she wasn't interested, so she left her job, and now she doesn't find another au pair job soon. She'll be sent back home because she won't have a visa to work anymore. So she luckily finds another job right away, and it's for a family with a dad named Charlie. He's a single dad. He has 2 kids. He's a workaholic, and his wife left him less than a year previously and hasn't really taken care of the kids at all, so he's been left with the kids and he needs an au pair. And Hannah's pretty nervous because of her last job, but they have a quick connection and a romance ensues between both of them, and I thought this was a really cute book. I loved the romance. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I definitely would love to read more by Stacey Hart. I liked her character development, I liked the romance, I liked the steaminess, but it wasn't overly steamy. I just thought the book overall was really good and I really want to read more by her. And then I read Disgrace by Brittany C. Cherry. I've never read anything by Brittany C. Cherry before, but I had seen a couple of good reviews about this book, so I was really excited to read it. I read the last one and this one on my Kindle Unlimited, so I don't have physical copies. This one is about a woman named Grace. She's getting divorced. She found out her husband had cheated on her, and now they're selling their home in Atlanta, and they're both going to go back to their hometown and kind of spend the summer there. I think she's a teacher. And so she does go back home, and she goes to see her best friend and finds out that her husband had been sleeping with her best friend, so she's not having a very good time, and her car breaks down, so she takes it to the local shop and she meets a guy named Jackson. He's a mechanic, and she thinks he's really good looking. He's younger than her. He is this town's bad boy though. His dad is an alcoholic. His mom died in a car accident like years previously, but they have a connection and a steamy romance starts between them, and they agree to have a sex-only relationship, but of course it doesn't stay like that, and they kind of rub off on each other and better their lives when they're together. So I thought this one was really good, really angsty. They both had a lot of drama and bad things happen to them, so I thought it was a really good book, and I'd love to read more by Brittany C. Cherry. I gave this one 4.5 stars. And then I read Watch Me Disappear by Janelle Brown. I was really excited to read this one. It is about this family. So about a year ago, this mom, her name is Billy, she went on a hike and she never came back. She went missing, and it's been a year, and you know, they never found her body or anything. And so she had a teenage daughter and a husband. The husband's name is Jonathan, the daughter's name is Olive, and they're kind of trying to move on. They're trying to get the life insurance money, but without a death certificate it's really difficult to get it, so they have to do a like presumed dead type of thing. But now that the year is coming up, Olive, she believes that she's seeing visions of her mom, and Jonathan's looking into Billy's past and realizing he didn't really know her that well, and he thinks that she could still possibly be alive. So it's kind of their story of figuring out if Billy is still alive, and it's supposed to be kind of like a thriller. It was lightly suspenseful, if that. I didn't find it super suspenseful. It was just had an element of mystery to it. It wasn't my favorite. I wish it had more suspense to it, and I didn't really find any of the characters that likable, so it was hard for me to like the story because I didn't love the plot, I didn't love the characters. It would be helpful if I liked either the characters or the plot. I really wanted to like it because it did take place in Northern California, and that's where I'm from, but unfortunately it just didn't really click with me. Probably going to pass on this copy. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And then after that I read another 3-star read, so I'm probably going to pass on this copy. I'd actually just included it in a video about highly rated books that are on my shelves that I haven't read. This one I've had for years. It's by Ruta Sepetys. It's a YA, and it's called Salt to the Sea. And this one gets over 4 stars on Goodreads. It gets like 4.2 stars. So I thought this was going to be phenomenal, but unfortunately it just kind of didn't really do anything for me. I don't know if it's because it's YA or what, but it is a World War II fiction. It is about Germany towards the end of the war when Russia was starting to invade and things like that. And it follows like 4 characters, I believe. It follows a Lithuanian nurse, she's older, like in her 20s, a German guy who's about 20, a Polish girl who's pregnant and she's in her teens, and then also you see the thoughts of I forget what his name was, but he is a German soldier, so he's a Nazi. And basically a lot of the refugees are trying to get to this ship to leave Germany and stay safe because Russia is imposing on Germany and bad things are happening. And it is actually based on a true story of the ship. It's like the biggest tragedy in maritime history, but the characters themselves are all made up. And it's kind of like the story of all of these refugees that I mentioned. They're trying to get onto the ship and their past life and their stories and how they intersect. And it was a really interesting story, but it just didn't quite hit hard for me enough, and I wasn't that compelled with the story. I did give it 3 stars, and it was enjoyable, but I've definitely read better World War II fiction. The thing I enjoyed about this is that I did learn about a part of history that I had no idea about. I had no idea about this ship. It was, I forgot what the name of it, it was like Wilhelm something. So that part of it I thought was really interesting, but I was disappointed because I loved Ruta Sepetys' book Out of the Easy. So I'm probably going to pass this one along. And then after that I read a really good book. It's called One Day in December by Josie Silver. Everyone and their mom was reading this in December, especially for that 'Tis the Season-a-thon. And I thought that I was not going to get to read it until next year, but Nicole from the Girly Girl Bookworm said that this is not really just a December book, and I would agree. It actually spans over 10 years. So it follows a girl named Lori. She is going home for the holidays, and she looks outside the bus that she's taking, and she locks eyes with a really cute guy. He never gets on the bus. So she kind of leaves, but she's smitten and she's convinced that she had love at first sight. So for the next year, she continues to look for the bus boy. She tells her roommate / best friend that you need to look out for this guy. Well, she never finds him, but then the next holiday season, her best friend, she decides she wants to bring her boyfriend home, and she's super into him, and she wants to introduce him to Lori, and lo and behold, it is the guy from the bus, and his name is Jack. And they pretend like they didn't know each other, even though they did. And it's basically the next decade of them trying to navigate being friends and being in each other's lives and whether or not they should be together. And I thought this was a really good story. I loved the characters, and although I was angry at some parts of the story and their decisions, and I wanted to like grab into the book and shake them and make them make different decisions, but overall I thought the story was really good. And a lot of people compared this to a book called One Day, and it's also a movie. That one has a really tragic ending, and I'm so happy that this one didn't. This one has a pretty good ending, and I ended up giving this 5 stars. And then after that I read If I Run by Terry Blackstock. This is the first book in the If I Run trilogy. I guess that Terry Blackstock is a Christian fiction writer. I've never read anything by her, but this one definitely wasn't very faith-based or anything. I could kind of tell it was Christian fiction, but not very much. This follows a girl named Casey. Years ago, she found her dad dead in her home, and the cops said that he committed suicide, but she's not so sure, and she's kind of been wary of cops ever since. Well, fast forward like 15 years or something like that, and she walks into her best friend's house, and he is dead, and there's like blood everywhere, and she tries to help him, but now she's covered in his blood, and she knows that the police are going to think it's her. So instead of like defending herself, she just goes on the run and leaves all this evidence behind of her being at the crime scene. So she's on the run, taking buses, you know, trying to get away, Meanwhile, the police assume it's her that has, committed this crime and killed this guy. And so the victim's family hires an ex-military guy. He just left the military due to PTSD. His name is Dylan. And they hire him to find her like a bounty hunter and bring her home. And so it's kind of going back and forth between Casey and Dylan. And Dylan's starting to question if Casey actually did it or if she's innocent. And I assume that since it is a trilogy, there will be a romance between them later. This was a pretty good story. I gave it 3.5 stars. It wasn't very, it didn't really propel me forward. It's not a page turner. The mystery wasn't crazy. I think that maybe the stories probably could have been in one book or something, but it was pretty good, and I am interested to read the next one in the series. And then after that, I got a really good book. It is Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. I've heard so many amazing things about this book, and I think it came out in 2017 or 2016. And everyone's like, you have to read it. And I have a few of her books on my shelves, and I had made a video saying there's authors I want to read more of, and Jodi Picoult was one of them because I have a lot of her books. They are kind of chunky and hard-hitting, so I kind of have to consume them occasionally, but this was so good. This was about Ruth. She is a nurse. She's been a labor and delivery nurse for about 20 years, and one day she goes to take care of a baby that was just born, and the couple is not very nice to her, and they actually request from her boss that she does not take care of their baby anymore because Ruth is African American and this married couple are white supremacists, and it is really wrong that they asked that, but those are their beliefs. And instead of the boss saying no, Ruth is one of the only nurses on staff, she's going to take care of your baby. Instead, she says no African American staff can take care of this baby. Well, somehow Ruth gets left alone with the baby because they're short-staffed, and he dies, and she gets blamed because it was kind of like, what do? I was told not to help this baby. And so it's through the perspective of her lawyer, her public defender, and the father of the baby. And she's put on trial for murder of this baby, and you kind of get to see the perspectives of all three of these people, and it gives a really good perspective on racism in society and really made me think. And it's hard to read a book, to find a book that makes me think as much as this one did. And I think this is a really important read and very hard hitting, but also really touching in a lot of ways. So I did give this 5 stars. And then I read a really quick thriller called The Secret Mother by Shalini Boland. I never read anything by her before, but she had gotten a lot of good ratings on her books, and I gave this one 4 stars. It is about a woman named Tessa. She comes home one day and she sees a little boy in her kitchen, like a stranger, and his name is Harry, and he says that you are my new mother. And she's very confused because she doesn't know who this kid is, and it's just a stranger in her house. So she takes him to the police, and the police are very wary. They think that she took the child because both of her children are passed away, and she's had some mental health issues ever since. So they assume she took the baby, took the child. And even her ex-husband doesn't really believe that she didn't take the child. And now media has been alerted about it, and it's a big scandal, and they are bum rushing her house all the time. Like, she can't really go out. Her life is just completely changed, and she's starting to question her own sanity because she has no idea where this kid came from. She's trying to piece together where he came from and how it's related to her. And it is a wild and fun ride. It's a really quick read, and like I said, I gave it 4 stars, and I thought it was really enjoyable. And then after that, I read Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. I have a couple of her books on my shelves, and she always seems to be releasing, he or she seems to be releasing books, and so I wanted to get caught up on their books before I purchased any more. So this one is a domestic thriller, as you could tell by the title. It is about a married couple named Jack and Grace. They seem to be a perfect couple. Everyone thinks they have their life set out. Jack is a doctor or something. No, he's a lawyer. He's a lawyer, and Grace is a stay-at-home wife. They met a couple of years ago. Grace spends her time taking care of her sister who has Down syndrome named Millie, and she lives at like this kind of school, and then when she's 18 she'll come and live with Grace. But most men think it is a bad thing that she has this sister she's responsible for. But when she meets Jack, he is super open to it and is excited to have Millie move in with them. So when they get married, unfortunately, it's not like that, and it appears that Jack has bad intentions for both Millie and Grace, and so Grace has to try and think on her feet and make it so Millie can't move in with them because she doesn't want Millie to be hurt, and so she has to try and stop it before bad things happen to the both of them. So this was an interesting thriller. I did like the ending, and I'm curious to read more by B.A. Paris, but I didn't find it especially unique or original. I thought I've read similar stories before, and the title kind of gave it away for me, like about what it was about. So you know, when it said the perfect marriage or the perfect life, or the perfect lie, it basically gave it away for me. So I didn't find it that surprising, and I didn't find Jack very realistic. So I'd give this one 3 stars. And then after that, I read The Wrong Game by Candy Steiner, and this was her newest romance release. I think it was released in 2018 in the fall. And really enjoyed this. It was a sports romance. I'm not big on sports, so I couldn't really relate in that regard, but I did still enjoy it. It was about a girl named Gemma. She had found out that her husband had cheated on her, and then he died, so she never really got to get closure on the infidelity. And so she was convinced that she would never fall in love again, and she just didn't really want to fall in love again. She bought season tickets to the Chicago Bears before he passed away, and now that he's dead, she's left with season pass tickets for this upcoming football season, and she has 2 tickets for every game. So her best friend tells her that she should get on a dating app and get a new date for every game, and she can kind of just hook up with them and move on and not have to, you know, settle on anyone or have a relationship. Well, the bartender at the bar they go to overhears it, and his name is Zach, and he says that he would love to take her to the first game and that he would love to be her practice for the rest of her dates. I think there's 8 total. Well, they go on a date together, they hit it off, but Gemma doesn't want to have a serious relationship. She doesn't want any more than one night with someone, so she kind of pushes him away. But he buys the tickets next to her, the seats next to her, and it's convinced that he needs to make it so they're there together every single game. And it is their romance, and it's really good. I really, really liked it. It was steamy, it was funny. Like I said, it was really heavy on the sports, so if you like football, it has a lot of football in it. I thought it was really good. I gave it 4 stars, and I can't wait to read what Candy releases next. And then after that, I read Big Sexy Love by Kirsty Greenwood. I heard about this from Lisa Books and Smiles. She had said this one was really good, and this one was on Kindle Unlimited, so I read it through there. It is about a woman named Olive. She really likes consistency. She likes routine. She doesn't really date. She's been in the same job since college. Her best friend Birdie has been her best friend since college, so she doesn't have a lot of excitement in her life. Her best friend Birdie, though, is dying from, I think, lupus and a couple other problems. And Birdie has a dying wish for Olive. She has this letter that she wants Olive to give to her first true love in the United States in New York City. And so she asks that Olive travels to NYC and deliver this letter face to face to this guy. Well, Olive is scared to fly. She doesn't like new things, but she agrees because she loves Birdie more than anything. So she goes to the airport. She actually is in line, and there's this guy who cuts the whole line, and he says, "I'm a writer for Sunday Night Live," which is probably Saturday Night Live, "and I need to get, you know, into the lounge to something with the writing." Well, he gets through, and she thinks he's super rude, and she gets on the plane, and what do you know? He's sitting right next to her, and they have a really weird encounter on the plane. His name is Seth, and she gets to New York and turns on the TV, and he's made an episode about their encounter on the plane, and she is mortified, and she can't go anywhere in New York without people recognizing her. Well, her and Seth run into each other, and they actually form a friendship, and he is nothing like she originally thought, and they have a romance, and it's kind of a coming of finding yourself story for Olive, and a coming of age, even though she is in her 20s. It's, yeah, kind of coming of age, and a sweet romance between her and Seth. And this one actually had me like kind of crying at the end. I wasn't expecting this light-hearted book to get me in the heart, but it did, and I gave it 4.5 stars. And then this one has been so highly anticipated for me, and I was super excited to pick it up, and it is An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. I gave this one 5 stars. Holy moly, I really liked this. It kept me on my toes the whole time. It had my heart beating and kind of kept me in this like state of suspense the whole time. So it is about a woman named Jess. She's in her late 20s. She's a makeup artist and she doesn't make a lot of money. Well, one day she's at a client's house. They're students at NYU, and she overhears that there is a study going on in the psychology department that pays $500 per day, and it's just a one-day psychology study, and Jess could really use the money. So she goes the next day to the study and pretends that she was supposed to be there and gets her way into this study. She basically has to answer questions. It's an ethics and morality study. And the questions really dig deep, and somehow she keeps getting called back for a couple of days to do more questions and make more money. And it is for a Dr. Shields. So you see through the perspective of Jess and Dr. Shields, and Dr. Shields then selects Jess to do no longer this big study. She ditches the study and decides that Jess is going to be the study, and does one-on-one sessions with Jess and has Jess doing very weird things for money. And Jess starts questioning if what she's doing is really right and moral and ethically correct. She does it anyway because she will do anything for money. And this was a wild ride. This was crazy. I felt like the end was a little rushed, but overall I really did enjoy it, and so it didn't make me dock any stars for that. But I just love everything that they've written together so far. I loved The Wife Between Us, and I loved this, and I haven't really seen any other books that are like tackle this type of topic, so I thought that was super unique. And then after that, I read Here's to Us by Elin Hilderbrand. This is my second Elin Hilderbrand. I think this one is a few years old, maybe like a 2015 release or something. And this one is on Nantucket, so another one on Nantucket. And it is about a guy who has passed away. His name is Deacon Thorpe. He is in his 50s. He is a TV chef, and he's super famous for that. He owns a really elite restaurant. He's been married 3 times, had 1 child with each wife. He married first his high school sweetheart, Laurel. Then he cheated on her and married a woman named Belinda, who is a famous actress. Then he left her and ended up marrying the nanny that he had named Scarlett. So when he passes away, he leaves the will for his agent slash best friend Buck to distribute to his family. And what better place to do that and spread his ashes than his favorite place in the world, which is Nantucket. And he has a home called American Paradise on Nantucket. So the 3 wives, the 3 kids, and Buck all get together there, and Buck tells them that he wanted to split the house 3 ways between the 3 wives, and a lot of drama happens. They're all going through crap in their lives, the kids too. And this was a pretty good story. It wasn't my favorite compared to like the other one that I read, The Identicals, but this one was really good. And I like how Elin Hilderbrand really dives into not only the setting, but the characters, and I felt like I knew them. And even though Deacon wasn't alive in the book, I felt like I knew him. And it kind of is a story about love and forgiveness, and putting all their differences aside for someone who's passed away, and that even though he was a really shitty husband, he was a great dad, and they all love him even though he was a terrible husband. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. The last book I have to talk about is The Reunion by Samantha Hayes. This is a suspense novel. It follows a woman named Claire, and when she was a teenager, her 13-year-old sister went missing, and she never was found. And now it's 21 years later, and she's kind of moved on with her life, but her whole family has been wondering, where is Lenny? And because a body was never found, her dad's health is deteriorating, and she thinks that if she gets together all her high school friends and her brother, maybe his health can get better, because he does have Alzheimer's, and maybe it'll refresh his memory. Well, they all come to visit, and kind of all hell breaks loose, and a lot of old things are resurfaced, and a teenage girl goes missing, and the circumstances are really similar to the disappearance of her sister, and they're wondering if they're related and if it'll kind of lead her to where Lenny's body is, or where Lenny is. This one was okay, I guess. The twist and turn, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was okay, but kind of a disappointment. I thought it would be better. So those are all of the books that I read within the last 2 weeks. I will link them all down below, and I'd love to hear what you guys have been reading, and I'll see you guys on my next one. Bye.